Hello, everyone. This is Mary Ann from Transforming Hearts, PLLC. Welcome. Welcome to our first live of May Mental Health Awareness Month. I appreciate you all for joining us here today. And we'll probably give it a few moments here for people to kind of join us. But I do want to introduce Hilary, who is, again, our guest speaker for today. Welcome, Hilary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And we've been waiting for this. And I've been watching you and some of the things that you were doing, and I'm so intrigued by everything that you do. So I'm super excited. Number one, for you to be our first guest speaker of the month, and just to really have this conversation with you outside of our previous conversation, right? And Hilary and I just really meant, right? Sometimes a lot of these things we're not meeting in big places. Sometimes it's like on a chat and it's just like, oh, you're someone that I like to connect with.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm someone who loves to collaborate, but as well as someone who's kind of spontaneous. And I'm just like, oh, I like your energy. Let's roll with each other.
Yep. I feel the same way. I feel like, especially in this post-COVID, a lot of those networking events and stuff, it's just not like it used to be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have to find these ways to connect, whether it's, like you said, through a chat or whatever. So I was really happy when we kind of stumbled upon each other.
Yes. So I'm going to, I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my, this live just as well, so people have access to it. Let's see, there we go. And I think we're actually streaming on Instagram too.
Awesome.
So we are live on Facebook and on Instagram on Transforming Hearts PLLC. And let's roll on with some introductions, right? So Hilary, so she's going to actually introduce a lot of what she does, because there is a ton of it, and it's great stuff. And my audience my heart tribe knows that I will mess up the words and how to pronounce it. My heart tribe knows me a little bit here, so they know I'm gonna tear this up. So we're not gonna do that today. So Hilary is the owner of The Mindful Mama. I love your business name. So she is currently enrolled in a 3-year certification process to become a somatic experiencing practitioner. Hilary combines her lived experience as a trauma survivor with her professional expertise in the areas of mental health, maternal care, and holistic healing to create transformational experiences where people feel seen, safe, nurtured, and empowered. Hilary is a mother of 2 amazing kiddos, a wife, gardener, hiker, and dog mom. When she's not working, she can usually be found in the woods or laying on the floor with her kids piled on top of her. I love it. So Hilary, tell us a little bit about your credentials.
Sure. So I am a Reiki master teacher, and I'm trained in a couple of different lineages. So I am an Usui Reiki master teacher. I'm a Holy Fire Karuna Reiki master teacher. I am a Gendai Reiki practitioner. I'm a Kripalu yoga teacher, trained at the 500-hour level. I'm a postpartum doula as well, and a lactation counselor. Let's see, what am I missing? I've done different trainings and certifications and everything from Qigong to Ayurveda, yoga in the schools, yoga for life force yoga for anxiety and depression, peer support, trauma-informed care, and other ones that I can't remember right now. But so that's a little bit about me.
So when we talk about, because one of the really the ideas that I was like, you know what, I want to be able to do the lives for Mental Health Awareness Month, and I wanted to intentionally focus on things outside of talk therapy, right? Everybody know I have the talk therapy and wellness retreat. So Transforming Hearts itself, the goal of it and our mission is so that you can choose the healing avenue for you. And so, I do have the Reiki meditation, and we do have a self-love movement for women just as well, and as well, of course, the talk therapy piece, right? So but we know there's some people don't, for them, maybe talk therapy isn't where they feel connected to. We're all different type of beings, spiritual beings and things like that, and we want to be able to connect and heal in some type of way. And it's almost like you're the embodiment of all the things outside of talk therapy that can really help people like heal and grow in their own way. So today is about embodying wellness and exploring Reiki and somatic healing. So why don't we start off in, I'm just curious, like, where do you find people the most when they're coming to you? Which part of the things that you do, what are they going to you for the most? Or is it like pretty even?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest portion of my work now, and it's like shifted over the years, but definitely right now, the biggest, what I do most frequently is Reiki. So offering Reiki trainings, certifications, and, offering one-on-one sessions. And I do have a lot of people that come to me because they are looking for an alternative. Like they've either tried talk therapy and haven't gotten what they wanted out of it. And I want to just like preface this by saying that I think that talk therapy is an amazing tool. But the truth of it is that I do have a lot of people who come to me to say like, yes, I've been in therapy for this many years, or I've been on medication for this many years. And it didn't, it wasn't working for me, or, I had to choose to get off the medication for this reason or that reason. And they're looking for something else that's going to support them. And usually when they come to me, they feel like, oh, I feel like this could be the thing, because of what they've read about it or heard about it. And I feel like Reiki can be a hugely helpful thing. And I also don't ever claim for it to be the cure-all. I think that we all need a combination of all kinds of different things. And I also feel like the healing journey is very much like, peeling back layers of the onion. So, and part of that goes to say that like something will work so long to get you through that first layer, and then you might need a different tool. So like, for my own personal journey, I spent many, many years in the mental health system as a teenager doing all the traditional things, talk therapy and medication and all of that. And, it worked to a degree, but it really didn't address, I feel like, the underlying things. And so then I found my way. That was eventually what led me to the kind of spiritual path. And so I found yoga, and I found Reiki, and I found shamanic healing, and I found sound healing, and I was exposed to all these different things. And again, it was like they were all so helpful for me up to a point, and I still use these tools in my life now. But at a certain point, I then had to reach for something different, because it was as if, I'd come so far in my healing journey, and I kind of plateaued where I couldn't, there's still things that I felt like weren't really budging with all of those tools. So I had to reach for other things. And so I feel like, as people come to me, to get Reiki done, I feel like it's very similar. Maybe they've found so much progress doing, with therapy or with medication, and now they're looking for something that's a little bit, different, that's going to help with that next layer. And that's often how I describe Reiki anyways, is that it is really a very slow process of like, peeling back little layers, and yeah, helping to bring more peace and more balance and more healing.
I love that because again, like all these aspects and pieces are so important. Like, again, like talk therapy and I think what we have to understand as humans is that we're just not made up of like one thing. We're a multitude of layers, and different things connect us. And I know that people tend to be like, oh no, like they want to really believe and think it's that simple. But really we're not. And when you start understanding that, the healing and growing process of just being and living can bring you like feelings of peace and things like that. But sometimes you really have to work on it, and you have to be open to it and be mindful about it, right? And I think if people were a little bit more open to it, and I think, it's starting to push towards that because it's being brought out. People are talking about it more. So it's a little bit more present. So it's more in your face. So people are just like, oh, okay, let me check this out. But I've also heard, even with the Reiki, when I do there, people are hesitant. What is that? And what is it going to do? It's almost like scary to them. How
Yeah.
do you explain to anybody who is coming to you for the first time and might be a little nervous about any of the processes that you do?
Yeah, no, and it's such a great point. And I know that there will always be people, and I mean this is true for other practices, but it just seems
Mhm.
especially true for Reiki, which is that there will always be people who it's not a good fit for,
Mhm.
and for some people they feel like it challenges their belief systems, their faith, things like that. But one of the things that I feel about Reiki, and I feel this way about yoga and all of the things that I've done over the years and had to have these conversations around, is that I think that every single one of these practices can and should be adapted
Mhm.
to support like your belief systems. I remember, I was at a wellness fair. This was like a decade ago, and I was talking about, free yoga classes, and I remember having one person go by, and he didn't even want to hear the word yoga. He was like, he literally like put his hand up like a
Mhm.
blinder, like I don't see you, and
Mhm.
said, "No thanks, I'm a Baptist." And I was like, that's cool, like that's fine. I am absolutely not trying to push anything on anybody. Um, and but then I also had somebody who had come to my classes for years, and I just loved it because every single time we would bring our hands together at our hearts, like he would, and he told all of us like that was a time when he would pray to God, and it was like that. How beautiful was that? Because he found a
Mhm.
way to make the practice feel supportive and to work with what he already had. So I think it's possible to do that with Reiki as well. And to really make it something that doesn't have to challenge or replace anything that you already work with,
Mhm.
but it really can, blend and support one another. So, my approach to those conversations is always like, does not have to replace anything that you already believe. I'm not trying to force this on anyone. If you're open to it, great. And if you're not, that's okay too.
Mhm.
But let me tell you, what you can expect, what some of the benefits are. And I try to lead from that place of, especially for the people who are hesitant, of like, here's what the science says. And the research around Reiki is that it has been proven to reduce depression, anxiety, insomnia, and to just like increase this overall sense of well-being, which is this kind of hard marker to describe, but it really is true. There's just so many people who feel this greater sense of wellness. And that's what I always love is it seems to inspire people to want to take better care of themselves
Mhm.
in this really, like, I can't think of another practice that does that, where
Mhm.
you can come and you can experience it and you feel great in the moment, but then you also go home and you're like, oh, I'm going to make better choices because that's going to support me in continuing to feel this sense of balance in my life. And who doesn't want that, right?
Right. That's
So
what I feel like we're all striving for that.
yeah,
Give me a little bit more
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I try to lead from that place of like, here's what you can expect, and demystify it a little bit because it can
Mhm.
seem very mystical, and abstract and obscure. But I always tell people like, it might feel exactly like you feel when you get a massage, or, you might feel very peaceful, you might fall asleep.
Mhm.
um, but here are some of the benefits that you can expect. And I feel like that usually helps to kind of bring it down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting because anytime like I have somebody here and they're almost like, okay, I'm trusting you,
Yep.
right? So it's almost like they like the relationship first, and they're just like, whatever you say, okay, like I
Yep.
know I can trust you. And then afterwards, like the experiences of a lot of people, they're just like, oh, my energy is just pushing people away. Like they're saying, nope, I don't want it. I don't want to be bothered by you. And they're like, it's making it so much easier for me to just move forward and just, and it's interesting. Everybody's experience tends to be different from it, but
so different, which is so neat because I feel like that's like one of the gifts is that it really meets people where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
right? In this very unique way where it's like it's not just going to give everyone the same cookie cutter experience or the same cookie cutter benefits. It's going to be completely based on where that person is at. Which I love so much because it's like personalized without us having to do anything, right? You know, we don't have to know what that person needs, even like, you know, the Reiki is going to give that personalized experience. But I love what you just said about how it makes it easier for people to move forward. And I wish that someone would do a research study on that piece of things because it really does. I always describe it as like it removes the boulders. So like if there is a big boulder in your path, it's as if Reiki removes it. So like Reiki's not going to do the work for you to make you go forward in life, but it's going to make it so that you don't have all these obstacles standing in your way. And it's going to feel so much easier to just move forward with ease. And and move towards the things that are actually like really truly for your highest good. It always amazes me.
Yeah, it's almost like it brings a sense of clarity for that moment because in a life with chaos and the things that you might be doing, it's almost like it helps to ground you. And so, you know, again, because I've had it done on me, I do Reiki as well. So it's just like, it's almost like nothing at the moment can bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
I love it. You know, I started, I've always gone, you know, throughout ever since Reiki came into my life, you know, over a decade ago, I've received it. But in the last like year or two, I really put it to the test for myself and I started to receive it more regularly. And it just amazes me, you know, what's possible, especially like I have 2 young kids running around, one who's like in the terrible twos and love them to death. But man, it can be really stressful sometimes. And I had these moments of like serious mom burnout where I was like, oh man, I'm so touched out. Like I'm tired. Like I just feel so depleted. And I turned to Reiki and I started having it done, you know, weekly for like a month. And it just restored my resilience in this way that like nothing else was. You know, I was doing all these other things to take care of myself. And it was like, you know, those 4 weekly sessions. And then I, you know, continued, but like less frequently after that, really felt like it just completely like refilled the well so that I could go back to functioning and be like a good mom with more patience.
So all you moms
amazing.
out there, the mindful mama, like this is something, you know, again, like the more open you are to trying to find that balance and wanting something that is going to help you, like be open to some of the things like these professionals are doing because we are doing some work out here. And when you are in the midst, and a lot of times because I have the women's movement, like one of the biggest things is women will all say, I don't have the time, or I don't have this. You don't have the time, or you're not prioritizing the time. It's 2 different things, right? And again, I could say that about men just as well, is that we prioritize whatever it is that we want to prioritize.
Yeah.
Because you probably can scroll on social media and go down the rabbit hole of it. And that might be an hour. And then you wasted an hour when you could have done a 60-minute session.
Right. Yeah.
Good for thought. So, you know, tell me a little bit about your balancing act when it comes to being so to a mother. So, I mean, I have kind of grown kids, my grownish kids, right? So 2 19-year-olds, a 21-year-old. So they're kind of on a different level or transition in life. But you have little kiddos. So tell me how it is balancing the kids, household, and even like your practice.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a constant, you know, kind of reframing that I have to do within my mind because it's really easy to go to the place of like mom guilt because, you know, owning a business in general is a really demanding thing. You know, I left my nonprofit job because I wanted more, you know, time and space, mental space, for my family. And it's so funny because it was definitely an interesting trade-off. You know, I have more freedom and flexibility certainly now. to like make the school events or like go, you know, take the kids to the doctor's appointments or whatever it is that needs to be done. But I also have that mental, like constant mental thing that's going, saying, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. And this has to get done. And you know, and it's really hard to shut that off and then be fully present, you know, when I am home and I'm not working. So, so yeah, it's been a very interesting battle. Some days it's better than others. But again, like this is where I feel like my practices really, really help me. You know, as I was saying, like peeling back layers of the onion and the things that work for me at this stage of life versus the things before. You know, so in this stage of life, like when I'm so stressed and I'm getting stuck in like, you know, those not so great thoughts about myself and the balance of it all and all of that, you know, I turn to Reiki and I turn to, you know, EMDR has been incredible in my life. And so, yeah, I turn to the things that help me to kind of do the reframe and feel more resilient, because I feel like it's always going to be a balancing act. And there's some days where, you know, I'm really giving it all to my business. And there's some days where I'm giving it all to my family. And then there's some days where, you know, it is a little more balanced in between. And so I have, you know, a couple of people that I talk to who help to remind me that like, you know, that's how it goes and that's okay. And that, you know, especially when you own your own business, there's going to be the times where you have lots of space for the family and other times where it's all about the business and, you know, trying to find the moments of balance where you can and trust that it's all going to even out. So
yeah, and I wanted to kind of bring that up briefly too, because of the fact that whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working, right? Like
100%.
No matter what, it's always about trying to find the balance, and sometimes it is a give and take. Some days might be better than others, but knowing how to forgive yourself for that, because we tend to be hard on ourselves for not being present in all aspects, and we can't be present in all aspects.
No.
And yet the one thing too that we want to get better at is also having time for ourselves, and that tends to be difficult, especially with little kids. Sometimes even with the 19-year-olds, it's like
yeah. Some of it never ends, right? It doesn't matter how
different level of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So really, I wanted to go into the and if anybody has any comments, questions, please put it in the chat, and I probably should check the Instagram too. But I wanted to go into the somatic healing part so that everybody gets a little piece of like some of the other things that you do. So talk to us a little bit about the somatic healing, because I'm not personally like knowing of what that is either.
Yeah. So so somatic experiencing is something that I've known about for a long time, but I started to you know, practice for myself about a year ago, and now I'm in the process of becoming a somatic experiencing practitioner myself. So somatic is it's kind of like a big buzzword right now, where you see it linked with all kinds of things: somatic breath work, somatic, you know, exercise, somatic yada yada. When really what somatic means is it's of the body. And so when my kind of approach to somatics is helping people to, well, I guess it would be, you know, there's kind of multiple aspects to it. So helping people, one, to just get back into their bodies and finding a greater sense of embodiment. I feel like if you're somebody who's experienced trauma like I have, or even just anybody living in this modern day world where like we're constantly on screens and, you know, all the stuff, it's really, really easy to spend the majority of your time up here. So I often say I spent like the first, I don't know, majority of my life walking around, you know, just like a walking head. Really, everything below is kind of disconnected. And when I look at my journey, it's really amazing because like I started with yoga at the age of 13. So most people would be like, oh, of course you're embodied. Like, of course you have a good sense of what's happening physically. But the reality is especially for people who've experienced trauma, it's really easy to go through the motions. So I went through the motions, and yoga offered me a certain amount of healing, but it wasn't until I found this somatic work that I was able to approach my yoga practice completely differently and get something totally different from it. So somatic experiencing in particular is a practice that was created by Dr. Peter Levine, and it is a process for you know, getting in touch with the body to release stuck energy that is there from thwarted stress responses. So to give you an example of that, every time that we experience a, stressful event, whether it's traumatic or, something that you wouldn't necessarily consider traumatic, there is either a mobilization or an immobilization that happens within the body. So we're either, feeling ourselves being kind of filled with energy so that we can fight back or run away from whatever that stressor is, even if we don't really have to. So for example, like if you're getting a stressful email from your boss, you don't actually need to fight your boss and you don't need to run away from them either, but your body doesn't recognize that. It still responds in the same way. So when we don't have the opportunity to complete that stress response cycle by moving our bodies in some kind of way and discharging that energy, it becomes stuck. And having experiences like that over and over and over again has an impact on us on many, many levels. So through Peter Levine's work, Somatic Experiencing, we can get in touch with areas of the body that seem to have patterns of, either holding or gripping. It could be through pain. It could be through places in the body that are very kind of numb or disconnected. And then we can work with them by listening to the body very slowly and carefully. We can work with them to help to complete that cycle. So for example, someone who experienced a traumatic event in their childhood and they wanted to run away, but they couldn't. That might be a person who is constantly shaking their leg. The person that's like always got that foot moving or their leg bouncing underneath the table. So that is energy that is essentially lodged in that example, the lower body, that is not, wasn't able to be expressed. And so it's going to lead to a certain amount of uneasiness or discomfort within the body that they might experience like anxiety or, just that restlessness.
Right.
And so a somatic experiencing practitioner could guide that person to, they don't have to relive anything. They don't have to, they're completely staying focused on the physical experience, and they're going to get in touch with that part of the body. And oftentimes in a situation like that, the person might find through that guidance, like, oh, I feel the urge to run. And then they're able to actually move their legs with a lot of mindfulness and really stay with the movement. And then they will carry that movement to completion. And then they'll feel this huge sense of like resourcedness in themselves. So like, wow, I feel just really calm, or I feel very centered, or I feel just like this spaciousness that I haven't felt before. And so that energy, that was in the legs becomes discharged, and then the whole body gets to kind of settle and then recalibrate with like moving that through. So that's just one example. But yeah, somatic experiencing is huge. I know for me, once I started doing it, I kind of felt into all of these places where I had no idea I was holding so much stuff. And when I was able to touch into it, it was like, wow, that's really, really profound. And it gave me this new sense of understanding of just my body in general and my responses that come up. So, it's kind of amazing. And in the meantime, as I'm continuing that certification and learning more and more tools, I'm offering like workshops on like embodiment practices. So, how do you kind of get out of your head and get back into your body? How do you, kind of bring yourself back into the present moment, and do that using the body as a tool. So, and I think whether you've experienced trauma or whether you're just, a stressed out person living in this world, like I think we all can benefit from getting out of our heads and back into our bodies. So.
Yeah, most definitely, because I think a lot of people we hold energy in definitely in certain places. So, and depending due to past traumas or anything like that, like where are you holding that energy, and how do we allow you to release? How does it release? And I think I feel like all the things that you're doing intertwined together in some type of way, and it can only make it even more impactful on your practices.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they do kind of support each other and work at these, they are, like you said, interconnected, which is really neat. So
Great, great. And then you're also a postpartum doula.
Yeah. Yep. So that I didn't even know what a postpartum doula was when I first heard that term. I wish I knew it before I had kids, but I knew it by the time I had my second. So a postpartum doula, for anybody that doesn't know, is someone who supports a family after the birth. So a lot of people know about birth doulas, person who's there, for the birthing experience, but a postpartum doula is somebody who goes in after the fact and supports families through that transition of the first couple of months of life. So, yeah, that's been really cool work too.
Nice, nice. Is there anything that you want the audience to know regarding, like, even if they were hesitating on maybe going to you for any of your services, what is a message that you want to be able to share with everyone?
I think that, one of the things that I pride myself on, and one of the things that is often kind of reflected back to me from people that work with me, is that I just create the space for people to show up as they are. So even if you're hesitant or unsure, or like, I don't even know if this is what I need, I don't even know if I want to do this, I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me. I just always give people the space to show up as they are, and I meet you where you're at. And there's so much like flexibility in terms of, I have people that I work with where we're together for 90 minutes and they get, a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And so there's options and there's choices. And, there is no such thing as one size fits all healing. And I think that, I'm able to see that in people and kind of be a good gauge of, what might fit for one person. And there's always, like I said, there's always choice. So,
yeah, definitely. Nice. And where can people find you?
So my website is mindfulmamact.com, and I'm on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook at Mindful Mama Reiki. So yeah, I would love to connect with anybody that wants to connect.
All right. I thank you so much for being on here today and being, again, our first guest speaker. I think this was a great conversation to like kick off May Mental Health Awareness Month, because I think it sets the tone moving forward for the rest of the month. I think next week I have like 2 people that I'm also guest speakers, but it sets the tone for the rest of the month as far as what the audience can expect. Understanding that there are different ways of healing, and you want to try things so that, until you get something that you feel connected with. And it's not a one size fits all. It's really what you feel like is calling towards you and that you're working on it. Right. Yeah. Because we want to progress in life. We want to move forward. Like, we weren't born to just be stuck in one place. And if you're stuck in one place and you're not growing in different aspects, like, you have to understand too, like, mental health wise, where that kind of puts you, right? When everybody's trying to grow and change and move forward, where are you in life? And that can also bring around certain energies. At least that's my belief in itself. Right. And so, always find a way to progress and move forward as far as like your own, what you embody in yourself. Right.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Hilary, for joining me on this live. It was such a great conversation. Thank you for all that you do. And I'm excited. You never know, like, we might have some workshops together at some point.
I would love that. I would love that. Oh, thank you so much again for having me, Marian. This was awesome. This was so much fun.
And thank all of you that have joined. And if you had hit the replay button and you tuned in, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. And please definitely reach out to Hilary with any questions, or even to, be part of some of her services.